Okay, we've been here 3 nights and I'm going to get set up here and do my last night of POTA. But before I do that, I figured I would show you all real quick how I've been setting up my operation. I've really been preferring the V-Dipole. And I'm just going to go over my components, how I carry these things, and then how I'm able to quickly go from 20 to 40 meters. So what I have with me here is the CHA hub, which just creates basically a mounting place for all of your components here. And it really just gives you that angle for a nice V-Dipole. I have the CHA blank here, which is just a straight pass through, so it allows me to take the coax into it and go straight into the whip. So on this side I have a 40 meter loading coil, and then what I do is I pack this coil separately. This will screw in to the top of the CHA blank. And what's cool about these coils is that they actually have holes that allow you to jumper the 40 meter coil. So if you just want to operate as 20 meters, I actually have these little pigtails here, these little jumper cables with just simple banana plugs. And they just simply plug right in here. That allows me to jumper the coil, and then I can use the same whips to do 20 or 40 meters. So it's pretty easy setup. And I'm going to throw this on the mast. But the other part I use, and this is kind of important because the ground side of the CHA blank is going through the hub. So anything that's connected to the hub will be part of your ground. And I don't want that because we got a nice V-Dipole here. So this is an insulator. So this will insulate this whole component from the mast I'm going to put this on. And that just makes sure the ground stays where the ground needs to be. And then also, just in case you guys want to do this, I do have a lot of the Chameleon components. I actually do not use Chameleon 17-foot whips. And the reason is because their whips are a little shorter and it'll put you at the very top end of the 20 meter band. I actually use the Alpha antenna whips because these whips are actually, I think, 17 feet 9 inches, and that gives you just a little bit more length so you can dial in that 20 meter wherever you want it. So if you like to work CW or do some of the FT8 portion of the band, you can tune that in with these whips. If you have the Chameleon whips, you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's why I actually use the Alpha antenna whips. So I'm going to go ahead and put these components together, and then let's throw them on the mast, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so before I throw this on the mast, I always put the 17-foot whips on first. Do that real quick. Another piece that I like to add too, just to take stress off the coax and the choke hanging, is I do use a 90 degree there, so this way the coax is hanging straight down instead of bent at the feed point on the CHA blank. All right, so I'm using the CHA Porta mast. This one is their 20-footer, which their collapsible size is, I forget the exact, it's like 7 feet 8 inches maybe. The only drawback with this, it's a really nice heavy-duty mast, but it is tall and it's really hard for me to reach. So the only way that I can get access is I have to get up on the bumper of the car here. So I'm going to do that. All right, so what's cool about this, with the whips closed, it's really easy to just screw on. So I'm going to do that. And you could also just twist the top of the mast. It will spin freely too. So if you actually wanted to open the whips on the ground and then just do this, you could do that as well. But I figured it'd be fun for you guys to see me try to struggle and stretch out the whips. So now that we got that on there, here comes the fun part. So I'm going to stretch out the whips now, and I usually just do it when it's like this, and I can barely reach it, but just enough for me to go ahead and do that. So I actually have the whips marked with a permanent marker, and that's how I know where to dial them in. And then I also use my fingers and hand sizes to really fine tune them. So if you're asking yourself, why don't I bring a step ladder or some kind of ladder to stand on? If you watch our video on the camper, you'll know we're pretty tight on space, so that's really not an option. And this is where it helps actually being taller. All right, so we should be pretty good there. And then the last thing I do, I got my coax cable here, and I do have a choke from Palomar Engineering. Always be choking, as they say. Throw that on there. And because we have the 90, there's no stress here on this cable, so that's helpful. Always make sure the connections are all tight, and that's it. So that's my 20 meter V-Dipole. It's in 20 meters. And if I want to switch this to 40, I just bring down the mast, pop out these jumper cables here, and then I just have to shrink the whips down a little bit, and that's all. I can get on 40 in 30 seconds. So it's pretty simple. So let's get this puppy up in the air and let's get on the air. And then one thing I like to do, since I'm always in Colorado here, I always like to have the broad side of the antenna going east to west. And so I just do a rotation like that, and now we're good.